Let's call the December subcommittee meeting for purposes of classification together. Present are
Diane Doyle.
Mark Kleckman,
John Ferrara.
Anthony Antico.
Lynn Peabody.
Patty Fisher.
thank you all, especially coming on relatively short notice, and we're joined this evening by the hiring manager, who happens to be Tracy Blaze, the town administrator. Tracy, welcome. Thank you for joining us. As I think I mentioned everybody in the email, thought maybe we just ask you to give us kind of the 2-minute tour of how this position has evolved.
Sure.
And what your current thinking is in terms of the reclassification, and then we'll get right into it. So,
Sure.
Tracy.
This job has kind of morphed over the years. We had a previous person in there that had started out as purely an administrative assistant, and then based on her really areas of expertise, she kind of evolved into more of an executive type position. At the time we called it an executive administrator, because I have no idea, I'm sure we pirated it from somewhere, I don't know, but and then when she left, it went back to being strictly an administrative type role. Now I'd like it to go back to more of the executive administrator role, where they take on more responsibility. So I thought it would be appropriate to rewrite the job description and to change the name. We've been having a very difficult time attracting people to our municipal jobs. As you know, we've had the last 2 or 3 years, we've had a significant amount of turnover. Some of it began during COVID, so we had what I call COVID-induced retirements. People who may have been close to retiring were just like, I'm out, and they left, and we've replaced some of those people, and some of the replacements have now left. A lot of the municipalities, because there is a significant shortage of municipal managers, are throwing crazy money at people to lure them from other communities. One example, our town accountant, assistant town administrator position, we had an assistant town accountant who we trained to take that role. She took it, she was here less than 6 months, and went for a $20,000 increase in the town of Danvers for a lower position.
Oh, wow.
So we've had things like that occurring. Right now I think we're relatively stable. We filled our fire chief's position, we filled the town accountant's position, but we still do have some openings. That being said, I want to make this as attractive as possible to get a qualified candidate. Now this has been advertised for a few days, and I have one person that has the qualifications, the other applications that have come
But putting aside the attractiveness
Yep.
of the role, this is a fair representation or an accurate representation of how you want to see the position evolve.
This, as it's rewritten,
Yeah.
is more of an assistant town administrative role. So I've reclassified it, so to speak. So we took all the administrative tasks, what would have been referred to before as more secretarial type tasks, posting meetings, minutes, those types of things. They're still in here, but we've also expanded it, so someone who's going to apply for it is going to read this and understand what the job entails, that it's not just administrative and role, that it's a highly responsible position.
Thank you. Any immediate thoughts, or if not, we can jump right in?
Yep.
Okay, as is always the case, we go through a series of factors when we're classifying either a new or reclassifying an existing position. There are 10 factors that we look at. Just a couple of reminders, as we always do before we jump in. Whenever possible, we try to stay away from what we call one-offs. And a one-off would be, one of the factors is, working in disagreeable environments, working outside, working with hazardous materials, things like that. If somebody might do that once or twice a year, we don't really consider that as part of the role. It's a one-off. Supervisory is another one typically we look at. If somebody is not in a supervisory role, but he or she might be asked to, on an ad hoc basis, supervise a small group of people once or twice a year. We try not to consider that in the factor, it's a one-off, so everybody's good with that as always?
Yes.
Just like to mention that in advance to make sure everybody's on board. With that said, let's jump right into the first factor, which is complexity, judgment, or decision-making. I'll just paraphrase some of this stuff without having to go through it all. By the way, we'd like to have a hard stop at about 5 o'clock tonight if possible, so just bear that in mind. We should be able to get through this fine. Complexity refers to the variety and degree of difficulty of the work performed, including, of course, the degree of judgment or decision-making this individual may be asked to be responsible for, variety and intricacy of activities performed, so forth and so on. It looks at the variety of activities and the difficulty of the problems faced in dealing with those activities. One would be a highly repetitive role. Decisions are rarely required. Two is routine, wide variety of tasks. Occasional exceptions are encountered that may require analysis. This individual could make decisions regarding the setup and sequencing of priorities. A three is a somewhat complex role. This individual is assigned projects that require some analysis and planning. Exceptions may be analyzed and resolved by changes to standard procedures. And the decisions involve identification of alternatives to improve procedures. A four is a complex role. It might require modification of existing procedures, analysis and planning are integral parts of the position. Exceptions require in-depth analysis. A five is a role which is highly diversified and complex. The work involves planning, analysis, and co-coordination of major interrelated activities. Decision-making role. And a six is policy formulation, where this individual would be solely responsible for, or in conjunction with others perhaps, responsible for creating policies for the town of Newbury. Tracy, your thoughts there, and then we can turn it over to the panel.
I considered it a more complex role, so I would have ranked it as a 4.
A 4?
Yeah. My goal for this position too is this should be someone that can step in my absence, whether it's temporary or permanent. Someone could
Right.
step right in without missing a beat.
Okay.
Yep.
Let me just read 4 again. Work may require modification of existing procedures or the development of new methods. Analysis and planning are integral parts of the position. Exceptions require in-depth analysis and are resolved by changes to administrative and technical procedures. And decisions made are exceptions to standard practice and are precedent setting. Let me open it up to the subcommittee for questions or thoughts.
I had it a 4 or 4.5, and you can consider the 0.5 as a one-off simply because of that in your absence having to, step in. But I was in line with kind of what you were thinking on that as well.
Before anybody else chimes in, Patty, thank you for that. It reminds me, the other thing we always talk about is that on I'd say rare occasion, we do choose to sort of split the difference. Some of the subcommittee members may feel a position is a 4, others may feel it's a 3 or a 5 for that matter, and there are those occasions that we peg it as a 4.5, which is something that our history is. So, thank you, Patty. Other thoughts?
I see
Questions?
I see it as a 4 or 4.5 as well. Just I've highlighted the things that Tracy pointed out. All of the responsibilities require superior skills in all levels, and the ultimate aspect is if requested by the town administrator to step in, or if must step in, is Patty's 0.5.
Thank you, John. Other thoughts?
So I have a question. You said that you had an administrative assistant, and then you bumped that up to an executive assistant, and then that position has been vacated at this point. How long has it been vacant?
November 30th.
Couple weeks.
Just a few weeks?
Yeah.
Okay, so it sounds like this is an enhancement of that lost position.
Absolutely.
Okay, and so just to kind of get a good understanding, when you had that lost position filled,
Mhm.
you know, over the last couple of years, I guess,
Sure.
what was the workload of the town administrator? You know, did you just feel overwhelmed at times, there was too much on your plate, and you were really hoping to be able to offload some of those duties into the next person, and that really wasn't doable? So now, is that why you're enhancing this position?
I wouldn't say I ever feel overwhelmed. That's
Okay.
part of my role, is having to be able to prioritize and understand what needs to be done when. What I will tell you, and I mean this very honestly, I serve as the town administrator. I'm also the finance director, I'm the procurement officer, and I'm the HR director. In all likelihood, when I retire or leave employment here in Newbury, you'll have a very difficult time finding someone that would be willing to take all of those jobs
Yep.
without any support. So this is an opportunity, as I get older and things change, for you to start working on having that position that maybe could take on some of the HR role, or take on some of the procurement role, some of the more, I don't want to say mundane because they're not, they can be very complicated, but some of those things that are very embedded in Mass General Law or employment law that are more along those lines, so that they could learn those skills and that could be passed off, so I could work on some of the other things. I do, you know, Newbury is definitely, I think anyone employed here, a relatively small town, not a lot of support staff. It's kind of like being on a treadmill and juggling, and you know, I think we've been able to effectively do it, but it would certainly benefit to you to have someone that can help out with some of these things. I'd also love to have someone that can help us with grant writing and those types of things. We miss some opportunities because there simply isn't enough time in the day.
Thank you.
I have a question. So you had said initially when there was a person who, just because of their natural skill set, was able to do some of this, and then, you know, it was done. Did you see kind of your, the rate or the speed, however you will, in which you're able to move workload on behalf of the town, right? We want to make sure the town is feeling the benefit of added things too. So
Sure.
I'm assuming that putting this back to that position
Yep.
will kind of move the wheels
Expedite
of
things for sure.
town government a little bit faster on behalf of the public.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. And I think that kind of speaks to the point you were making. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know about all, but I think a number of the other towns have multiple people
Yeah.
Well,
working in effect in the combined roles that you have, and so.
yeah, it came to light, it's funny you mentioned that. We were recently working on the ACO proposal, the Animal Control Office,
Right.
we regionalized it. And we came into the room, and it was Patty and I, and each of the chiefs, and the administrator, and the town administrator, the manager and the assistant town administrator, are each of the other towns.
Right.
And, you know, in talking with them, I started saying, well, geez, you know, how does this work for you guys? Not only do they have, you know, full-time administrative support, but they also
Right.
have full-time assistant town administrators or
Right.
town managers, but they also have
Right.
administrative
So
support
in
as well,
effect, this-
and finance directors,
Right.
and
So this
HR
gets us-
directors.
This would get us a little bit closer to what
To the
that model
model
might look like. Okay.
Yeah, that a lot of the communities
Yeah.
have, so.
Are those communities typically larger than Newbury?
Those were Rowley,
Rowley,
Boxford,
Oxford.
Ipswich is
Ipswich
a little bit
is
larger,
a little larger,
but the others
It
weren't.
was, yeah,
Salisbury,
yeah.
Yeah.
Even Georgetown.
Georgetown, yeah.
I looked at it as a 4 as well. I wasn't sure it rose to the level of a 4.5. I didn't see, in my mind, a 4.5 would be, there would be a number of, you know, 5.0 elements in the role, and I guess I just didn't see a lot of what I would consider to be 5.0 in comparison to other people that we've put into that category, so I would be comfortable with a 4. Tony?
I would be more comfortable with the 4.5 because I was absolutely listening to Tracy. And you certainly want, that person is going to be extremely busy,
Yep.
covering many, many different areas. So I would go with 4.5.
Okay. Diane, your thoughts?
I was comfortable at a 4. I thought a 4.
Okay.
As I stated, I thought it was a 4 with the 0.5. I wasn't thinking of the one-offs when I was looking at
Yeah.
everything before this. So I could be comfortable either way, you know, if thinking of the 0.5 as the kind of one-off if she's not around.
All right, well, let's vote our thoughts on it. Diane, officially?
4.
I had it as a 4.
4.5.
4.5.
4.
I'm leaning more towards 4 after the one-off. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I hate being a tiebreaker.
That brings it in as a 4 then?
Yeah.
Everyone good with that? Okay, you're at a 4. Thank you. Next factor is education. Tracy, I believe in the job description you have this listed as a bachelor's level degree of, am I correct on that?
Years.
Yeah.
Correct.
We always ask whether the bachelor's degree, would you consider that a requisite or is that a preference?
Bachelor's is a requisite,
Prerequisite,
master's
okay.
is a preference.
Okay,
Did
then.
it say masters on here?
No.
No,
I
bachelor's.
think that makes it pretty straightforward as a 5, which is a bachelor's degree, proficiency in a specialized field, which is what you've looked for here, I believe.
Yep.
Any
Um,
thoughts on that?
I have a question. What is the educational requirement for the town administrator position?
Master's
Is it
in
required?
public administration or relevant field, if I'm not mistaken. I don't have the job
Six.
description.
It's a 6.
Okay, and it's a master's
Well, it's a 6, so it has to be.
graduate degree?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, so that's a pretty straightforward.
Pretty
five then,
straightforward
right?
5. Any commentary there, or everybody's that's a 5?
Yep.
Thank you. Okay. Next factor is experience. And this factor considers the time required to develop the necessary skills and expertise to perform the duties and responsibilities. Experience is defined as the length of time required to fulfill these duties, and years of experience are often used in the recruitment process. When assessing the required amount of experience, consider the complexity of the issues faced and the amount of judgment exercised. Generally, the more judgment exercised, the more experience is required. In the job description, Tracy's listed as 5 years of professional experience, including 2 years in a management position, preferably in the municipal setting, correct? Tracy, the only question I have right up front is 2 years in a management position. Again, preference, prerequisite.
Preference.
Okay, we'll get to that in a little bit under a different factor, but in terms of pure education, it's a bachelor's degree, which,
You know what, Mark, I think I'd make that a prerequisite because I would expect, I was thinking of town manager
yeah,
preference, but a manager's role, I mean, I could see a lot of times town planners will move into
Right.
town managers' roles or something. So I would think it would, it
Okay.
should have a managerial,
okay.
I probably wouldn't throw someone's resume out if they didn't put
Okay,
a.
well, you've said it here, including
Yeah.
2 years of,
Mm.
okay.
Yeah.
So in terms of experience, we're looking for 5 years, which would put this into the 4 category, 4 to 6 years. Thoughts?
I agree. 4.
Straightforward?
And you're
Everyone's
looking,
okay with the 4?
and you're looking for that level that the experience comes in a municipality.
Preferably, yeah, for sure.
So
Is that
that's a,
what's-
sorry,
No, I mean, that's an emphasis on preferably, or, I mean, that's a large differential out of private practice into municipal. Those are 2 different categories, 2 different realms.
Someone with municipal experience, I'm looking to hire someone with municipal experience because I can't, right now with all the new people that I'm trying to help train, I can't imagine putting another person in that didn't have any experience,
Well-
but given the lack of applications for these positions,
Well,
I'm also a realist, so.
the totality is you're looking for somebody that has a sense of foundation grants and knowledge of general laws, open meeting,
Right,
procurement, all of it.
right.
That's a lot of material information. You're not going to find that in the private sector.
I don't believe so, no.
Would it, so I think we need to split this up just for, I mean, we can come back to that, but the education should be listed and then the experience. Would it make sense to say 5 years of municipal experience, including, instead of, you could say municipal experience, including 2 years of management position, preferably in a municipal setting? Or you could say professional, 2 years of professional management.
So in
Almost
my mind,
flip
I'm
it.
thinking, you know, as somebody who jumped disciplines, if I had management experience in a private sector, but then went to work for a municipality, but didn't have management experience within the municipality, you know what I mean? I think that's someone you'd still probably want to look at.
Definitely.
Versus somebody who, you know, didn't have any of the other municipal experience, but had some management experience in a municipality. You know what I mean? I think management could be almost kind of profession neutral, you know, opposed to knowing Mass General Law, knowing how to research things in Mass General Law, and reading the nuances of, you know,
Yep, right.
of all of those things. That to me, if I was looking at it, would be where I would want this, the specificity of it, opposed to, you know, I've managed people in private sector and I've managed them in public sector, and I do it the same.
So Patty, I'm not sure.
So as a preference, is, you know, the experience, but the management experience, I'm thinking if we were softer on it could be private or public
Okay.
sector.
Yeah.
I would think that that would kind of open it up, you know, and then leave it to the interview to figure out what that management experience was outside of the public sector.
Okay.
There are really three elements here, you know, one is
Mm.
a minimum of 5 years experience.
Mm-hmm.
One is preferably 2 years of management experience, and the third is exposure to municipal issues.
So, I have a comment. So I think you can get, like, what are we doing here? You know, we're on a municipal board, right? All of my college board experience was higher ed experience, you know, at a board level. And so I think, you know, and so just taking my resume, you know, as an example, I mean, I've got a lot of, all of these kinds of things. I'm glad I have a good job, because I was looking at it, I was like, that's a pretty good job. But anyway,
See me
so,
after the meeting.
Yeah,
so
there's always better jobs.
So anyway, you know, I mean, professional experience and then, you know, managerial experience, got all of that, but then I don't have the municipal, or say this was a higher ed job, right? That's
Sure.
more appropriate for my resume. So I don't have experience working in a higher ed position, but I was 10 years on board, right? I was, you know, on the audit committee, I was the chair, the vice chair, the treasurer, secretary, all of those, you know, so I think that if we at least allow some opportunity for flexibility with this, I think that I would feel more comfortable with it.
I would agree, and as a practical matter, you know, Tracy's already shared the fact that there is a dearth of candidates out there who fit this paragraph. 5 years of this, 2 years of that, and by the way, we want a little of this too.
Yep.
And so, you know, to make all three of them prerequisites, I'm not sure that's in our best interest.
Well, the way it's written,
It's not.
I think the way
I
it
think
is
it
is fine.
gives some flexibility.
Yeah, I think
Yes,
that's
I
that's
agree.
great, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
All I'm saying is, you know, we asked whether the 5 years experience is a prerequisite, I think you said yes, and then we talked about 2 years of management, strong preference,
Yeah.
and, you know, municipal, that would be gravy,
Preferable,
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
and I think to leave it like that, because to expect all three, I think is, given this environment, I think it's unrealistic.
Yep.
And if we get it all, great.
Yep.
Okay, so, the 5 years experience, did we get to that yet?
We're just voting on the 4 to make sure we're all in agreement that it's a 4.
Four,
Yeah.
right. Everybody's good with that?
Yes.
Yeah. Four is gonna
Next
be
factor, independent action, initiative, refers to the initiative required to perform the duties, the creativity and original thought required for the job, and I think most importantly, the amount of direction and control received from the supervisor, in this case the town administrator, or by standard practices and precedents. A 1 would be somebody who works under very close supervision. This individual would receive detailed instructions on a daily basis, either verbally or in writing. There would be no latitude to make any changes in the workflow. And this individual would refer all but the most routine questions onto his or her supervisor. A 2 would be somebody who works under less frequent supervision, but the work is typically defined by standard practices and procedures. This individual would prioritize tasks and decide if additional information is required, but would still refer all significant problems and or concerns to the supervisor. A 3 works under occasional supervision, proceeds on his or her own when the majority of duties are well defined. This individual would use initiative and or ingenuity to identify potential problems and conduct research to determine solutions. A 4, this individual works with general direction and guidance, plans and carries out plans and activities to attain objectives, applies policies and standards widely accepted, but the assignment may involve creative work and or innovation. A 5, this person will work independently on most assignments, plans and carries out broad assignments of a major department, often involving other disciplines or activities, takes action without reference to supervisors, except when policy changes are required or major investments are involved or long-term projects are affected. A 6, this individual will work independently in a wide range of administrative and policy-making activities, plans and carries out major programs and plans for the entire town. The employee's work is checked only through consultation and typically does not require direction on a regular basis. Tracy, what did you have it pegged?
At a 4?
A 4, again, works with general direction and guidance, plans and carries out plans and activities to attain defined objectives, and applies policies or standards widely accepted within the occupation or the profession. Open it up to thoughts, questions?
I originally had it at a 4 or a 5, but after listening to Tracy talk about kind of, there'll be more of those assignments that are defined by Mass General Law and policy and practice, I mentally, before you said 4, kind of thought it back down to a 4.
What
Other
was your
thoughts?
original thought?
My thought was like a 4 or a 5, like
Okay.
someplace in that window, but hearing her saying she's going to keep the kind of more complex projects, if you will, for lack of better words, and the other person is going to do the more ones that are defined by Mass General Law and
Yeah.
policy and practice, I kind of switched my mind.
Okay. I was thinking 4.5, but I think with the conversations, I could scale it back to a 4.
Yeah. My sense is, Tracy, is this accurate, that you hope that a year in, this person is doing the work of a 5,
That's
right?
the hope.
Much more dependent, but the reality is that during this first 6 to 12 months, he or she will be more closely observed, supervised,
Right.
control the activities, so that's why I had it as a 4 as well. But eventually we'll get to that 5.
Yeah, I was thinking along the same line, that's why I originally thought of 4.5.
Yeah.
Just about, and that came to the
I do as
4.5.
well.
But the simple element, you commented, going back to your abstract from where we began, and that's the preparation of town meeting warrants and funding opportunities, whomever this individual is, going to be swamped with grant research, drilling down, looking for opportunities. And I'm sure we've missed a bunch. And that might become a large portion of a full-time job.
It could be.
Yeah.
Other thoughts?
I have a question. So if the hope is that this person is going to become more independent and have a broader scope in 6 to 12 months, how does it work to then have that reflect in salary? Because that's basically, I mean, we're grading, right, and which will ultimately be salary. So then, you know, do we want to under expect and like with a 4 And then in 6 to 12 months, you know, if this person is really, you know, doing a very good job, how do we kind of reflect that?
I hadn't thought about that, to be honest with you, but what we normally do in your classification is we be reflective of where it lands, period.
Right.
Because that gives us a range to work within. So if someone came in at the low range, there'd still be room within that classification for movement. Obviously, it's all subject to appropriation and the likes, but I think that range that's established gives you room to move
It
within
does,
it.
yeah.
So.
Upon
And I
review or whatever.
Yeah.
I think we want to balance the attractiveness with the reality of what the job is today and what it will be for the foreseeable future. And I think, you know, unless somebody is a slam dunk walking in the door, which is rare,
Haven't seen it yet.
this individual won't be involved in, at least for the foreseeable future, won't be involved in much of what would define it as a 5 in my mind.
Probably not.
Now, you know, we can argue the 4 versus the 4.5, absolutely, so I think that's fair.
What does the interview process look like? How many people does the individual pass through?
So because of the difficulties we've had in attracting candidates, I advertised that it's going to be opened until filled. There's no deadline, and if anyone qualified comes in, I'm calling them in and interviewing them right away. I'm not waiting until
Don't
they
let any
all...
grass grow.
Yeah, I'm not waiting until, you know, we have 10 candidates, let's schedule them all back to back, what we would maybe normally do in the process. I'm just, if someone comes in qualified, I'm getting them right in.
And how many within the village hierarchy meet with these individuals?
Just me.
Just you?
Yep.
Okay.
The select board,
It's like
you know,
they approve it.
is aware of all of it.
Whatever you
But it's
can
brought
tell.
to them,
Okay.
yep.
Yeah, so Lynn, to your point, we're rating the job, not the person, and obviously with somebody coming on board, there'll be a learning curve, that's expected as part of this, but we're trying to get to a range where there's a salary range and, you know, it would be reflected that way, I'm sure, but we're not rating a person and coming back and re-rating that person in this role.
Okay, so say in 10 months, this person's really doing a great job. We brought them in at X amount of money within a certain grade. And then I know, like at Anna Jakes, we get merit increases, which are really just increases. They're not based on merit. Everyone gets a 2%.
Same here, it's the same exact thing here.
Yeah, so if you, all of a sudden, you know, this person came in and was really doing a great job and you wanted to bump up their pay to reflect, you know, that good work, are you able to do that? Okay.
No, we do, it's exactly like you described, so town meeting would approve. I think the last couple of years have been 2%, and it's just a 2% distribution.
Okay.
There is no funding for merit.
Well, during the budget process, you would consider the following budget process.
Yeah, 2%. I mean, it's,
So so we have this broad grade, or, you know, like whatever, broad or not.
yeah,
And so then depending on the qualifications coming in, that's where you're gonna place them. And that's pretty much where they will stay.
pretty much, except for their annual COLA, if you want to even call it that.
I know, 2%.
Their annual 2%.
Yeah, because it's not a COLA, because it
No.
doesn't reflect cost of living, does
No,
it?
it doesn't, not anymore, that's for
Yeah.
sure, so.
Okay,
Yeah, that's the kind of the restrictions that we have on us as
Yeah.
a municipality.
okay.
Okay. Let's go around with that number. Diane?
I added a 4.5.
4.5. I also had it as a 4.5.
Same.
Same.
I know. 4.5.
All right, with a 4.5, thank you all. Good discussion. Consequence of errors is the next factor. Pretty straightforward, you know. What is the consequence of errors that somebody could make in this or her role? Who's affected? Is it the department? Somebody within the department, the entire department, the town, or maybe even the public? What's the extent of the losses which could result from inappropriate decisions? One, Errors are readily detected, costs and impact are minimal and easily corrected. 2, errors are probably detected by others within the work area. It may result in a brief delay of services or completion of tasks. Costs may be somewhat noticeable as materials might need to be replaced. There could be a slight loss of credibility to the unit or the department based on the nature of the errors. 3, errors affect the work of others but are generally not damaging to the town. Things can be replaced or repaired if it's equipment. Materials aren't able to be completed. Errors are detected and corrected before they become serious. It may cause a time sink, a loss of time. Correcting errors could delay issues, and the errors may have an adverse impact on the public or employee relations. 4, errors cause substantial identifiable losses to the town beyond damage and waste, may cause substantial delays in services or programs. There could be an identifiable deterioration in public or employee relations. 5, errors cause serious short-term breakdowns, may cause serious delays in services due to uncoordinated efforts, may cause commitment or withholding of funds, inadequate analysis or poor planning prior to major decisions. And 6, the error may cause long-term negative consequences to the town, terminal losses with no opportunity to correct over a period of time, may cause major loss of departmental or town prestige or reputation because results become public. I don't think we have to worry about fatal or incapacitating injuries in this role. Bless you. Tracy?
I had this one at a 3.
A 3? We'll read 3 again. Errors affect the work of others but are generally not damaging to the town. Errors are detected and corrected before they become serious. May cause loss of significant amount of time. Errors may have an adverse impact on the public and or on employee relations. Open it up to discussion.
Duties and responsibilities 1 through 12. If they were numbered, I'd say look at number 3 and look at number 5, responsibility for warrants and all that that implies in this remarkable village triune. And then number 8, assist the town administrator, finance director, and financial planning, verifies salaries, reviews. I mean, there's a lot of injury in there if somebody doesn't do their job awfully well. And it's all summed up in duties and responsibilities. This person is a lieutenant colonel, not a buck private.
Sure.
So are you suggesting you would have it rated higher than the 3?
I would. I'm not knowledgeable enough in the realm of positions in the village. I know we've spoken before. Diane's brought up the point that others already rated in similar positions at certain elements don't warrant a higher one than 3. But 3 just seems a bit low. I'd go back to 4 minimum.
Tracy, let me just turn it back to you. Why did you have it as a 3?
The only reason I put it in as a 3 is because I thought the likelihood of me detecting the errors before they became serious.
Okay.
So to John's point, so is it fair to say that it would be rare when this individual would be preparing the data, charts, grants, it would not require your perusal and your approval before they go any further?
Yeah, most of the research would be research that was commissioned by the select board or myself.
Right.
So in all likelihood, I would have eyes on it.
Okay. So nothing's, this is maybe a final draft, but it's getting your sign off.
Yeah, I mean, look, I make plenty of mistakes myself,
Yeah.
so, but at least there'd be a peer
Okay.
for us to go back and forth
Okay.
for reviewing those
Thank you.
documents and things.
Other thoughts?
So, I thought a 3, and some of the areas, John, you identified some areas, and so some of the areas that would be a concern for me, as far as errors that might occur. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, training and employee development, personnel, when administering personnel procedures, so recruiting, hiring, evaluating, disciplining, and terminating. And so back to your point, are you working in conjunction with this person? What if you are in the Bahamas for 2 weeks and this person had to, take corrective action and, had to kind of take the lead on that?
Good point.
So,
When I would travel or go away, there would be a delegation of authority that would be filed with the town clerk's office, and they would have the authority to do that in my
Yep.
absence, yes.
yeah, and those terms can be tricky. And then also on the next page, the first real bullet, oversees the town's insurance and risk management program, including work comp, and coordinates with the insurance carrier on matters of risk management. So those are the things that if this person was working independently, I think that there could be, some higher responsibility than a 3, that maybe a 4. So then I was thinking maybe a 3.5, but I think when you're saying that, it's going to be kind of a peer support, and this person will probably not be working independently, I could see it being a 3.
Well said. Tony?
Also, if you look at the job title, is Assistant Town Administrator, with all kinds of potential responsibilities here, not necessarily assistant to the town administrator. You look, many of these items are quite heavy, so I would go higher than that.
You said that would give you reason to move it up from a
Yes.
3
Yes,
to a 3.5? Or?
I can go 3.5.
Okay.
That's a good point.
Other thoughts? Harry?
I had originally thought 4, but after listening to the piece of that peer supervision, I kind of thought that 3.5 as well.
Yeah, that's where I was at.
Yeah.
I kind of thought of 4,
Mhm.
just because of the responsibility of the role.
I mean,
But
it's,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, it's the difference between being a chief and an XO.
All right, let's go around the table. Diane?
I'm going to land at a 3.5.
I'm comfortable with a 3.5.
3.5.
3.5.
I'm okay with the 3.5.
Same, 3.5.
3.5 it is, thank you. Next factor is contacts. This refers to the relative importance to the organization of the working relationships that are required in this position. The contacts can be internal or external to the organization. Contacts take a variety of forms: face-to-face, on the phone, public appearances, media. This factor also assesses who the contacts are, the purposes of the contacts, and their importance to the town. Contacts could include, but are not limited to, residents, elected officials, members of town boards, appointees, co-workers, and etc. Covers a variety of purposes and complexity: advising, coaching, disciplinary action, so forth and so on. Tracy?
I had this one as a 5.
5? All right. Let me just read them. I think we can skip through 1 and 2 here. Clearly, a 3 is frequent and important beyond immediate associates, requires appropriate tact to discuss problems, act as a resource person, clarify policies. Limited responsibility for securing cooperation, regular contact with the public, town officials, and board members, some responsibility to persuade. A 4, frequent and important for the purpose of clarifying town procedures and resolving issues, requires the use of interpersonal skill to clarify the contact's issues and to communicate effectively and clearly, requires an in-depth professional knowledge of the subject being discussed. A 5, which is where Tracy had this peg, the contacts requires frequent and important, often around a topic of deep personal concern for a stakeholder. Could be a tax abatement issue, could be compliance with state and federal regulations. It requires advanced communication skills, tact, persuasion, presentations. Successful resolution will result in the stakeholder feeling respected and heard, even if the ultimate decision goes against the stakeholder's personal interest. We don't need to do 6 here, I don't think. Anybody would like to hear 6, or?
No,
Yeah.
no, I think that's the administrator.
Mr. Chairman.
So Tracy, talk about that last bullet point, resolution of issues with various stakeholders. What's the frequency with which this person may be in contact with the public relative to issues that may be personal, like a treasurer collected might be with taxes or so forth and so on?
So this one, I put it at a 5 because, and this is where I get to be kind of selfish. So the select board's office and the town administrator's office, we deal with many people on a daily basis, whether it is a tax issue, or the building inspector didn't follow up with this, or I need this pothole fixed, or my neighbors put up a fence and it's on my property. I mean, I can't even, a myriad of issues that are dropped in this office on a daily basis are pretty diverse. That being said, my hope is that this role will be able to solve those issues before they have to get put on my desk. So there is a significant amount of judgment, political acumen, if you will, understanding, oh, that's a hot potato, I'm not gonna do anything without consulting, or, you know what, I can work with the DPW director, or I'm gonna give Diane a call and talk about that tax lien, get all the details and prepare it all. Maybe I can't ultimately make that decision, but I'll get everything ready, so that I wouldn't have to spend a lot of time doing all the research. Public records requests, we have a lot of those, someone that could ultimately take over doing those types of things. But you know, selfishly, a lot of those, to have a lot of those concerns addressed would be fantastic.
So they don't rise to the
Or so that you don't have angry residents coming in before the select board.
Yeah.
You know, I've been trying to get this addressed and no one's hearing me. We want to make sure that, you know, we're their first and hopefully their last stop at getting their issues resolved.
Thank you. Thoughts?
I can support that.
I agree with the 5.
Yeah.
Sure.
Let's go around the table.
Yeah, I think also from a visibility standpoint, it's like first, you know, a very visible role, so I had it at a 5.
I still as well. 5.
5.
5.
We're at a 5. Thank you. Supervision. If I'm not mistaken, supervision falls into 2 categories. One is the sort of the character of the supervision. What are the supervisory responsibilities, and then the scope, how many employees. As I read the job description here, I know you talked on a couple of occasions about the possibility, or perhaps likelihood, that from time to time this person might be charged with the responsibility of overseeing others, but it's not necessarily it's not embedded in the job description itself. This would be, would you say, one of those one-offs?
I would say so.
Okay.
Yep.
Other thoughts on that? Folks agree that it's a one-off and not part of the...
Sure.
I agree.
Agreed.
Yeah.
All right, if that's the case, I think in both character and in scope, this would be a 0. Is that correct? No supervision? In the old chart, this person is not walking in the door supervising anyone.
I had it listed as a 4.0.
I see under 5, you know, may have supervision over a department or so within the same department perform, may have subordinate supervisors.
Right.
So if we cannot lump them together, because I had the character piece higher than the scope.
Okay, let's talk about the character piece, which is what are the supervisory responsibilities? Considers the degree and nature of a position's supervisory responsibilities.
So I saw that as, let's say Tracy says to this person, hey, work with the chief of police on this issue, and they're kind of on this particular issue. Like I saw, as far as that, they might not be my direct supervisor in the moment, but on particular issues, this
Yeah,
person might
yep,
have the authority.
exactly.
Whereas in scope, it was less. That's why I thought that this one was a little bit higher, because it could be circumstance-based. That resident comes in and complains that the police department neglected to do something. I might be working with this person instead of directly with you to kind of figure out what really happened and solve it, and how do we, make amends or communicate that that wasn't the case or whatever. So they may be kind of supervising me on that. But once that issue is resolved, they're not,
Yep, yeah, I get it. So are you thinking a 5?
No, so I mean, I had it is, at
The character.
so for character, I had as a 4.
Okay, yep,
That's what I.
Right, if I need help finding or hiring
Yeah.
someone, you know what I mean, I really saw it as assignment-based
yep,
supervision, opposed to, is this the person that's gonna be my longtime supervisor over all of it? So that's why I put that one a little bit higher.
Yeah, and her,
We're talking about character now.
Character I have higher than scope.
Where do you have it?
So where do I have character? I had character at 4.
and I don't think the scope detracts from the chief's 4 insofar as her intimate participation with the town's department heads.
I struggled with the scope
I have
piece.
a 0.
So I went back and
Excuse me,
forth.
I'm sorry.
I- Yeah,
Before we go any further,
yeah.
they're two separate factors here.
yeah.
Yeah,
So let's stay first with, unless people feel they can't vote on character without talking about scope.
No,
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 separate.
Let's talk about,
Well, the scope indicates where the character is practiced. And the level of department head involvement that whomever this person's going to be, they're going to be immersed in each of the departments and probably integrated intimately with them, and character is a big part of that job. But there's a big scope supervision capacity there too.
see, I'm challenged with this one, but I think to be true to our history of these classifications, I don't recall, I may be wrong here, I don't recall ever assigning a number to somebody who isn't walking in the door responsible for supervising other employees. And I think we've already established that this would be a, as needed, ad hoc, occasional, maybe not a one-off, but, others that we've classified in this factor have, it says in their responsibilities, staff
own
of
it.
2.
yeah,
Staff of 3, staff of, 4
Yeah.
or 5, and without that, I'm not sure how we can assign a number to it, anything higher than a 3,
okay.
does not have, a 3 does not have full supervisory responsibility for a unit. May assign, may monitor the work of coworkers, may be involved in recruiting, may train and coach staff. To me, the first bullet item under 4 is supervises positions performing related work.
Yeah.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Tracy, I don't think that's a regular part of this job.
No, I can see 3. I had it as a 4, but I see what you're saying, I can see
Yeah.
3.
You're talking about for character.
For
For
character.
character,
Yes.
yes. I saw it as a 3.
I can see it.
So I'm gonna trip myself up here. So this is kind of what I do, right, in my position. So I'm the HRBP manager, and I report up to the VP of HR. And then I supervise a couple of people in the HR department. But when I'm out and about within, the 1,200 employees that we have, I find myself acting kind of as a 4 frequently. Not directing work, not directing clinical work or anything, but kind of being a leader. So when you talk about, if you kind of throw in lead, influence without authority, if you kind of lead within the organization, I find myself kind of acting as a supervisor out in the hospital at various times. Again, not supervising clinical work, not supervising like finance work, but
Right.
just kind of
Okay.
carrying the mission and values of the organization out to
All right.
employees. I could see a 4, but, you know, I mean, this is, how many employees do we have?
About 50, I don't know the
50, 60.
exact number
Okay.
now, 60.
All right, so, you know, that,
Smaller scale.
sure, yeah.
For sure.
But a lot of these things, I'm thinking in my head, you know, oh, that's kind of me in my position.
Yeah.
But this one, I could see being a 4 for me. Anyway, if we, you know, for this organization, if we did a 3, I could support that as
Yeah.
well. But, you know, I mean, you've got a lot of responsibility, and when you're bringing in, and I like Tony's point, you know, the assistant town administrator, you know, that's got some heft to it.
Mhm.
And, you know, this is gonna be the face, you know, to the public, you know, for lots of different issues, and so I don't wanna undermine, I don't wanna undergrade this, you know, and I think that this is somewhere where I could see, you know, just based on my experience, I could see this being a 4.
Yeah. See, I looked at that last point you made as more the contact piece of this, the contact factor, the importance of the people that you're working with and your ability with tact and persuasion to deal with them, so.
Okay, but then going back to, and we're, you know me, this is my bread and butter, so I'm like pushing over the 5 o'clock thing, but.
Yeah, I do want to be sensitive to Tracy's time, she's gonna.
Okay, but, you know, it was kind of, people go away feeling respected and heard.
Right.
You know, I mean, so that takes, sure, it takes tact.
Right.
Tact is, it takes skill, but it also takes being able to support the mission values of the organization out to that person.
Yeah.
You know, okay, this is what tax lien says, you know, and I've worked with this tax collector, and
Right.
anyway. So
I think historically, we've been a little bit more literal than that when it comes to the supervisory.
Yeah,
Oh, so
Factor,
you're
that's-
saying,
so-
well, you
Alright,
have
let's-
to, okay.
Tracy, let's go around the table.
Yep.
We have 3 and a 4 on the table.
I struggled with this. I originally thought a 4, but I could see probably a 3.5. I could be
Okay, I
somewhere
have
in
it.
that, somewhere in that.
I had it as a 3.
I
John?
think 3.5 is, again, coming back to the actual definition of who this person is.
Okay. 3.5?
3.5.
3?
3.5.
I can go with 3.5.
It's a 3.5. Scope. I think this one's pretty straightforward. What do you have there?
I had it as a 6,
You did.
6.
yeah.
Do tell.
Okay, so basically, this would be the second in command.
Yeah.
See, so that goes back to the previous one.
That's what, but maybe I'm not
The character.
Yeah.
reading this correctly. So this is the second in command in my absence.
Yep.
A lot of times, I have 2 or 3 meetings going at the same time, so I can't be at them all. I would send that person to one of those meetings to act on my behalf. If there was discipline or whatever, they would have the authority. I don't mean we're not gonna consult and there
Yeah.
won't be conversations, but that's what I saw it as.
I bring recommendations to my VP of HR.
You do.
You know, and
Yeah.
they're based on my skill, knowledge, skills, abilities, pay, whatever it is. You know, so it's not very often that she pushes back and says, nope, we're not gonna do that.
Right.
So to your point, when you bring somebody in with some good skills, they're
That's the goal.
gonna bring something to you and you're gonna say, okay, let's talk about it, and then go with the recommendation, probably. So I can see where you're going on that.
So I thought similar, but with a different end result. So I think of like the deputy chief. He may do the legwork into finding out what's going on. He's got the intel about the who, what, where, when, why. He's gathering all the documentation to me. He's presenting a package to me. And with a
Is he
recommendation.
with a recommendation?
Yep.
Okay.
And I'm the one who's saying
Right.
yes, no, or we're going in the middle.
Right.
You know what I mean? So to me, I'm the ultimate supervisor of
Sure.
this,
For
whatever
sure.
the action is.
For sure.
You know what I mean? That has to do with personnel.
Yep.
He's got this is why I had like, you know, character and scope heavier, right? He's dealing more with the character stuff, but I'm the one who's ultimately responsible for whatever we send over to HR. I'm the one who's ultimately responsible for those decisions
Yep.
that are made, so that's why
Okay.
I had this one at a 0 or a 1, because to
Okay.
me, the second in command, unless I'm in Bahamas, which I'm probably still answering a phone call if it comes to discipline,
Right.
in that example, but you know what I mean? I'm just,
I get it.
You see what I'm
I
saying?
was just looking
No,
at it.
I'm still with Tracy on this one, because, as this person develops, you want to really be able to rely on them and not second guess everything that they're bringing to it. Like I said, for me in my position, I bring something, I've done legwork, I've done the investigation, whatever, and I'm bringing forward, okay, this is my recommendation, like, okay. So as you develop that second in command, you want them to be able to bring a solid recommendation
Yep.
to you and be kind of, your second
Yeah.
in your organization. So I
The
can see
challenge I
this.
have is that, again, I think it's important that we're consistent
Agreed.
with our history here. And, I mean, if memory serves, we've classified positions of department managers, with full budgetary responsibility, perhaps not policy-making responsibility, but if they've got a staff, if they supervise 1 or 2 people, that's a 1 or a 2. And,
Well, that's a very focused department, though. If it's finance,
Right.
it's finance. I
Right.
mean, this is everything,
it is, but, devil's advocate, there could be weeks at a time that go by without this person truly supervising anyone.
yeah, buck stops with you.
Collating, coordinating, absolutely,
So
but,
even if you go that route and you talk about that immediate department,
right,
there's still 4 people that there'd be so we're the Department of Administration and Finance.
right.
So it would be the town administrator, the assistant town administrator, then there's,
But in the org chart, they all roll up under you,
yeah,
which is
town
kind of what
accountant.
Patty was saying, right?
But that's the department.
The department.
If you're
But this person does not
compartmentalizing
have, this person is not hiring and firing, this person's not doing reviews, this person is not, setting goals for all of those other people.
No,
Again, to me, it's more of a one-off. Maybe it's more than a one-off. Maybe half dozen times a year, this person may be on an ad hoc basis responsible for the activities of 3 or 4 other people. And
Yep.
for that reason, I could see it
Yep.
getting points, but I don't think it rises to the level of,
Yeah. They're doing the grunt work for you, like, to me, the
Right.
buck stops with you.
right,
As a department head,
right.
if this person is in place, you're my supervisor unless you say on this specific issue, you're doing what he or she says.
No, you're right.
You know what I mean? So that's how I look at it. And again, I have that paramilitant kind of looking at it like, hey, sorry, Aaron, this took you a week and a half to figure out, but I make the decision here. You know what I mean? Even when I agree with you, like, it's
Yep.
still my name on,
Yeah, no, I understand.
they grieve it, it's my name on the
Yeah.
grievance.
Yeah, I know.
So I'm the supervisor.
I was looking at it from Lynn's.
Yeah.
Lynn's lens.
let's go around the table on it. Diane?
So I have a clarifying question. So are you saying that this person would be the in-between with the town accountant
Mhm.
and who else?
And John, all my direct reports.
So then that would put it at a 2. If we're but we would have to probably change this on the job description in terms of supervisory.
Oh, yeah.
So I think
Yeah,
that's
right.
where the confusion
Thank
might
you.
come in. So I think it probably comes in at if you're saying
Yeah,
it's
it's tough to have
4
an NA. and then-
individuals,
Right.
I think it's probably a 2.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Gotcha.
if you're saying that this person might supervise 2 or 3 people on an ad hoc basis
I gotcha.
regularly, then you might want to change the job description, and then it fits a 2, I
Yeah.
would agree.
And what are you
Yep,
gonna
thank
change
you for
the
that, Diane.
job description?
On the
to
first
say?
page
Supervisor.
where it says
Supervises up above, instead of saying NA,
Okay,
it says, ad hoc supervision of small staff or
it will
something
say
along those
yeah,
lines.
finance accountant,
Right,
assistant accountant.
Yeah.
right. So
okay.
Diane, you have it as a 2?
I have it as a 2.
I have it as a 2 as well. John?
2.
Tony? 2?
Sure.
I discussed around 2 or 2, I supported 2.
Okay, thank you. Physical demands.
All right.
1 is no undue fatigue, sitting, standing, walking, visual concentration we refer to as staring at a monitor, less than 20% of the time. A 2 is some fatigue may require bursts of physical activity. Sitting in front of a monitor.
Those stairs are kind of killer.
Sitting in front of a monitor 20 to 50% of the time, sitting or standing at the workstation. 3 is moderate fatigue, frequently moving about, maybe some heavy physical effort. Visual concentration is greater than 50% of the time on a monitor. 4 is frequent fatigue, considerable amount of physical effort with limited opportunities of rest. I don't think we have to go beyond that, do we?
No. She told, I got it, she's got
Tracy
it.
had it as a 3,
Yep.
which is staring at a monitor more than 50% of the time. Occasional moderate physical exertion. Maybe occasional heavy physical lifting. Diane?
I didn't-
You're close to the scene here with this role, what do you think?
I had it at a 3.
Yeah, the 3? I mean, just the monitor alone, I think.
Yeah.
So I had it at 2.5 because my only 3 category was the monitor.
Yeah,
Yeah, I agree with you on that.
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Tony, John?
3. 3.
Diane's 2.5,
All right, let's go around the table officially.
I would put it at a 3.
3? I had it as a 3.
I can live with that 3.
3.
3, the greater than 50% of the time, and a 2 is 20 to 50%. It's pretty defined.
Yeah.
And it's gonna be a lot of monitor time,
Yeah,
Okay.
so
yeah,
3.
between desk work and grants and,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah,
budgets and all
The
that.
research for grants
Okay.
alone.
Good, we're at a 3 there.
Yeah, I'm still 2.5, but majority, just because it's just the computer.
Oh, yeah, you didn't pull the
It's-
chief of police, good one.
I'm just Patty here at
Thank
this
you.
table.
Yeah, you don't need a uniform on, we forget.
That's fine.
All right, Les.
Final factor, I believe, is
Working conditions.
working conditions. 1 is agreeable, very few disadvantages, standard office environment. 2 is generally agreeable with some disadvantages. You know, minor injuries can occur, may require occasional outdoor work, bothersome odors, environment may be noisier or dirtier than a traditional work environment. 1. Tracy had as a 1. Anyone have other thoughts on that?
No, one is fine.
Straightforward, Diane?
Yeah.
1, 1,
1.
1.
1, okay. That's all our factors. The only thing we always mention here is there anything extraordinary that this individual might be dealing with on a daily, weekly, monthly basis that should be taken into consideration? The volume of the work involved. We've already established it's going to be a busy job. Is it extraordinary? The reason we ask these questions is when we get to the final determination, if it's, for the sake of argument, if it's a 16, is it a 16-1, a 16-2, or a 16-3, which has influencing factors? So is the volume of the work extraordinary? Is there an extraordinary amount of confidentiality involved in this role? Accuracy is a given. The level of a supervisor's position sometimes is factored in, or we also look at the marketplace. What is the challenge associated with hiring for this position? Is this a position that would have a readily available, group of applicants? Is it something that Tracy is going to have to go to the 4 ends of the earth to find? Is it something in between? So those things we factor in. Tracy, your thoughts here?
Volume is pretty significant. In my experience, Newbury is very much like working for 3 communities. Obviously, the issues on Plum Island are pretty significantly different than some of the issues that we deal with in Old Town or in Byfield. So it is extremely voluminous in terms of work. Confidentiality, very important in this role. Accuracy with any of our roles, I think that's pretty standard.
In the marketplace?
The
Challenge?
marketplace right now is a challenge. and technical terminology obviously is a component.
Yeah.
That was the hardest part of the job when I moved from the private sector to the public sector, was the terminology, the language, things like, I mean, the first week on the job, they were talking about processing a warrant, and all I could think of is someone's going to jail, you know, but that's, all of our language is very different than the
Which
private
brings us
sector.
back to the beginning of the conversation about the strong preference, if not a prerequisite,
Right.
for somebody who's got municipal background.
Right.
Which makes it that much more challenging to fill the role. So, sort of dovetails with that.
Right.
So that would, typically, in these conversations, that would bring it in as a 2 or a 3, I would think, as opposed to a 1. People have thoughts on that? A 3 being the highest level of importance placed on those other factors.
So you suggested a 2 or a 3?
Typically, with roles like this, given the level of importance and
Yeah.
the degree of subject matter expertise somebody might bring to the table, it typically comes in as a 2 or a 3 versus a 1. A 1 is pretty straightforward, a candidate can do the job.
How many hours is this position? Is it 36?
It's advertised as full-time, so in the office, it's 35 hours a week, but then we have select board meetings on
right.
Tuesday nights, so the expectation is that there would be evening meetings as well.
Is select board every other week?
Select board is every other Tuesday.
Yep.
Finance committee is the first Tuesday. I don't know that, other than in my absence, they'd be asked to attend some of the other night meetings, but there could be,
3-4 nights a month?
yeah, I would say probably closer to 40.
Okay. And do they have, is the 35-hour schedule, is that Friday afternoons off or something?
Friday, so
Friday.
they work Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday from 8 to 4, and then they work Tuesdays from 8 to 7. Is when town hall is open.
And they don't work on Friday?
They don't work on Friday. Nope. I do.
Town hall's closed on Friday. I didn't notice, is this an hourly or a salary position?
Good question.
Salary exempt?
Salary exempt.
Yeah, that's what you have
Would
there,
come,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and there are advantages to being exempt?
The advantage is we don't have to pay overtime. The expectation is.
For the
it would
organization, but
likely-
no better insurance rates
No,
or,
no.
PTO accrual or anything like
No.
that? Okay,
No, it's all standard dictated by the personnel policy.
okay.
bylaw.
So how do folks feel about the additional elements of the role and whether it would be perhaps a 2 or a 3, or 1, 2, or 3 for that matter?
I got it as a 2, just from the standpoint that I think of a 3 as being a role that has very technical experience that, is maybe harder to find out in the marketplace, and I don't think it's a 1. I think a 1 is,
Yeah.
you could pick someone that could morph into the role, and I don't think that rises to this, so I'd say a 2.
Yeah, I had it as a 2 as well. 2.
2.
I'll go with your recommendation. You know the organization and where that would fit best.
2 as well.
2? We're at a 2.
Okay, great. So it
Okay.
comes in at 18.2.
18.2?
And so I always like to quickly just correlate it to where it lands within other roles. We do have one other, we have 2 roles as 18.1s, that would be the library director and the council on aging director, so both director and department head roles. And it comes in below the 18.3 of the accountant assistant finance director, and again, that's a very technical.
Good one.
But now I'm looking at it, I'm thinking if that person is going to supervise, but we technically don't have that same
I know.
skill set right now in terms of, we really have someone filling the role as the accountant.
Right.
So I see it, I still see it as an 18.2.
2. Everybody's okay with a 2?
I'm good with an 18.2.
Tracy?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yep.
Okay. 18.2 it is.
Okay.
Thank
Anything
you,
else, Tracy?
everybody. No,
You good?
thank you very much
I
for
make
your
a
help with
motion that
this.
we, make the motion that we
Consider
adjourn.
18.2?
No,
Oh, so
oh, do we have to vote on that?
No. If there's nothing else,
I make a
motion
motion.
to adjourn? Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.